Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Brown, and I work here in the Career Development Center on campus as the Assistant Director of Career Exploration. And I'm joined by Wes Miller, who's our Associate Director of Internships and Student Employment. And we thank you for being here and thank our panelists and guests for being here for the Internship AMA Ask Me Anything. And in this session, we've got student panelists that will introduce themselves in just a couple of minutes. And then they'll be talking to us about their own internship experiences. And then we'll have a chance to have questions from our audience as well. Thanks for being here. And this is our agenda. Let's get started with Justin. Justin, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and where you interned.
Get started with you. My name is Justin. I'm actually a graduate student in the computer science department. I have two internships. I interned my sophomore year at the North Carolina Department of Revenue in Raleigh, and then I'm currently an intern at the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Charlotte. So that's just that for career plans. Just to go a little bit beyond, I'm actually planning on either staying full-time with the Federal Bureau or moving to the NSA. I have a few applications that I'm working on right now.
Great, thanks, Justin. All right, we have Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. Graduated in 2018, got my major in child development. I had two internship sites, one at Holston camp that was, I think, in Blowing Rock area, I believe. And then I had my other one at Ash Developmental Day School, which is where I actually was employed there for a while. So currently I'm working as an assistant teacher at Head Start. I'm a preschool teacher. So I've been there for about a year now. So that's currently where I'm at. And I'm thinking and contemplating about going back to school. So I'm working on trying to get my BK degree so I can teach, like officially be a lead teacher in the preschool classroom. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Great, thanks, Caitlin. And last but not least, we have Sarah.
Hey everybody, my name is Sarah Whaley. I graduated from App with my undergrad in May 2020 in psychology, and I'm currently a graduate student in Appalachian Student Affairs Administration program. And I was an intern in the Career Exploration Office with Michelle Brown herself. And that really helped shape where I am right now. That was kind of my test ride in student affairs and see if I want to do that. And so that's kind of how I ended up here.
All right, great, thanks everybody. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about why do an internship. So if panelists, if you wouldn't mind answering, why did you decide to intern and how did you go about finding your internship or selecting where you wanted to intern? And how about Caitlin, can we start with you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I had to do an internship, to get my degree, obviously. So I was only required for a child development major, we're only required to do a practicum and an internship. So I actually found my previous internship, the one at the camp, actually at one of your Career Expo events that y'all have on campus. And so I just went around to different places and, was asking them about internships. And I was specifically targeting an internship that paid, which is not easy, but I did manage to because I had to, I was married. I needed to have something to pay an income because it was going to be hard for me to have a job and do an internship. So they were one of the few places that were not too far that was able to pay and work with me. So that was personally the reason why I chose that internship site, my first one. And then when I got my second internship, I was more to the point of I was finishing up. I was already done with all my classes. I was technically already like graduating almost. I had just to redo it again. So I chose Ash Developmental Day because we were moving back to Ash. We weren't living in Boone anymore. So it was more convenient and closer to where we were moving to. And so it was employment, and they were willing to let me do an internship. So that's kind of why I chose those things.
Great. So it sounds like location, and you had to do it for your major. So it was an academic credit internship. So part of your academic study, and location and interest all
Yeah.
kind of played into that. And the paid piece as well. Sounds like it was part of that, right?
Yes, definitely. There was no way we could afford it, you know. So if I could get an internship that's paid, that'd be great. So I did. I pushed really hard and worked really hard to get to that point, but I did it.
Great. Thanks, Caitlin. All right, Sarah, how about you?
So for me, in the psychology department, you could either do an internship or you could do a research assistant position to fulfill credit for my degree. And I knew that research was not the avenue that I wanted to go down. And I also knew that because I had an interest in getting my master's in student affairs, that I really wanted to get practical experience within that. So in case I did decide to do that, I had that on my resume. But either way, it was going to be some transferable skill that I was able to have. And so I searched on the psychology's website that they have different internships listed locally, but also I went through Handshake as well, just kind of see my options. And I found the career exploration office, and it just worked out perfectly that it was something within student affairs. It was paid, and I didn't have to have it paid, but it's nice to be able to have that. And so a lot of different factors that went into it. And so I ended up applying there and I got it. And it was something that was truly a valuable experience, not only for my future degree and being able to present that to where the people that I'm with now, but also just for myself and personal growth within college, because I never had a job that was outside of my own like family's restaurant. And so to be able to have a different employer and to be there for a solid amount of time for a year, it was really beneficial to me to be able to grow within that.
Okay, great. So I heard a lot about transferable skills and some about your search for it too. So Handshake, and then using the website, and also doing your internship for academic credit as well, and finding something paid. Also heard you say that it helped you kind of shape your next steps for graduate school. So that's really cool. Okay, Justin, how about you?
So for me, an internship isn't required for computer science, but I wanted to do one just because internships really help with, like careers after the fact, like the FBI. If you get an internship with them, they'll automatically give you a job after you graduate, which I thought was really cool. The Department of Revenue was the same way. Most government, especially federal government internships, I found out are like that. So that was one reason to go. But I started with studying computer science with no knowledge of it. So I really wanted to get the hands-on act of it to make sure, especially I did it my sophomore year, to make sure that it's actually something that I truly wanted to go into and actually liked doing, full-time, 40 hours a week. And I also know that I like helping people. So I went into government service, helping people. Plus they're all paid. So go that way. But so then in my master's program, I applied for the FBI, just something I know I was going to be done soon in 2 years. I knew that I was going to need a job. Didn't know that this pandemic would happen. So it's definitely, good. The FBI and government's always hiring. So it's great to have an internship no matter where it is, but even there. So I mainly did it just for the knowledge aspect of it, to know that it's actually something that I like doing full time. It's actually something that I like, want to go into because I was thinking of changing my major until I had my first internship. And then my second internship was just for the sake of I want a job after.
Great. So heard a little bit about exploring interest, if this is something you want to do, and also using it as a kind of a gateway into the field that you want to explore. And you are in graduate school for computer science. That's right, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. And was your the FBI or the government internship, was that during graduate school or undergrad?
So yeah, the Department of Revenue was during my sophomore year, so that was
Okay.
undergrad. And then the FBI was supposed to be, but it got postponed a year. So I started that in grad school.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks, Justin. Okay, on to the next question. I think you all already touched on academic credit. We heard about that a little bit, and that is based on your, department requirements. So one of you, I think Justin said you did not do it for academic credit, but Sarah and Caitlin did. So that is important to follow those steps for academic credit requirements within your department, and also know what those requirements are. And we've got I think a slide on that in just a couple of minutes. All right. And you talked a little bit about the process as well. So how about telling us a little bit about what were your key takeaways from your internship experience? And this could be key skills that you gained, knowledge that you gained about yourself. So everybody tell us a little bit about that. And Justin just went. Sarah, how about you start us off?
Yeah, so like I said, it was definitely an experience that led to me figuring out my future career. And so in grad school to be able to do that as well. And so I think that was a huge key takeaway for me, was knowing and having that reassurance that this is something that I want to do, that's attainable, and this internship is also helping me get there. Personally, I feel that it really helped me to learn how to work with others within an office. And so I had a lot of experience working in a restaurant, and that's completely different than a 9 to 5 office space. And so having the different space in general, but also meeting with, like, we had graduate assistants that worked there, and they helped me a lot because they were also in the program I'm in now. And having a mentorship where they were a little bit older than me, but they had, it seems, so much more experience, even though there wasn't much of an age difference. And then having my supervisor, Michelle, also, and getting to know her, and just having different people in my life that really cared about me as a person, but also as a professional. And so I was able to have different meetings with them weekly and also one-on-one, to be able to say, hey, like, this is what we're working on. This is you as a person. This is what you're doing great. And these are some things that you can work on as well. And so having that constant feedback and knowing that they have my best interest in mind really prepared me as a person to be able to take that feedback and, use it well, and not just be like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? But also to be able to critically reflect on who I am as a person, who I am as a professional. And that was also corresponding in my internship class as well. And building that up. And then by the end, knowing, like, this is what I've done, this is what I've experienced, and also to take that knowledge and experience and be able to present that to a future employer, and gaining that confidence in that.
Great, thank you. So I heard a lot about kind of those professional development skills, but also the mentorship piece that you can gain through supervision and taking that to whatever is next in your life. Thank you. Caitlin, how about you?
For me, more for my second internship at Asheville Mental Day, was it was definitely good for me to start with, because it helped me know for the fact that this is for sure, this is the age group I want to work with, because I started off in the preschool room. I always knew I loved kids and stuff. So, but you never really know for sure until you actually get out and do it. So, for me, that was the one big takeaway was this is the age group that definitely sounded that for me. I got introduced to what it was like because it was an NC preschool classroom, which is what I'm in now, and that's what I'm now looking into being a lead teacher in the future as well. So I got to be introduced to what's called TSGO, which is a thing that teachers use to document students, children onto, like, basically it's like a website, and anything that they do, we document it on there, and we like assess them, and parents can see them, or we share that information with the parents. So I got introduced to TS Gold a little bit, which ends up being a huge thing where I'm at now. I learned about documentation and how to do it. I didn't get to do much helping with the lesson plans then because it was only like the lead teacher that was doing it. But it helped me get introduced, as I said, to it, like what it is and what to expect. So now at my current job where I'm at now, I can use some of those skills and some of the things that I learned in that classroom there. So it definitely was like okay, this is what I want to do. I really enjoy doing this. Now I know that I really want to be in an NC preschool type classroom and not like a child care center. I find out that I get burned out real easily. I love kids more than anything in the world, and I love my job more than anything in the world. But during the summer, I like having a break and I like having the time off. And I realized that working there over the summer, I'm like, okay, this is not quite my thing. But now when I'm at my job, we're only, we're like the public school basically. We run through the school year and we're off during the summer. And I'm like, ooh, this is nice. So I realized, also it's not as much of a negative as it is a positive. Like, okay, this is not quite what I'm looking for, but it's close to it. And now I know what I'm looking for after, my internship and being in this job for a year. I'm like, okay, I am for sure certain this is what I want to do. And that's why I came up with the crazy idea years later after graduating that I want to go back to school and get my BK degree because I love it so much and I want to be a lead teacher. So that's really helped me come up with my decision. If I never got to do that, I never would know if it was something I was interested in it or not until now. So I take that as a huge takeaway for me.
Great, thanks. Yes, so important to kind of explore those environments and what they look like. And, some people might think that all those jobs in child development are really similar, but I think you've shown that there can be a lot of differences between those types of roles. Okay, Justin, how about you?
Yeah, so both of my internships were completely like the opposite of each other. So, especially beginning of college, I was really like shy and didn't talk a lot. So my internship at the Department of Revenue really helped because I worked by myself 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week, well, not a day, 40 hours a week, literally sat by myself, listened to music and coded the entire time and had almost no contact with anyone else unless I finished a project. Now the FBI was the opposite. And so after 10 weeks of sitting by myself watching Netflix while I coded, I learned that I like interaction. So the FBI was really cool for that. I got to see pretty much two sides of, coding and being a computer scientist in the real world. The FBI, it was more teams. So I still did, I still coded by myself. I still did things by myself, but I was around a lot more people. I had a supervisor that checked in on me. I did a lot more working with other people, figuring out, exactly what needed to be done, what needed to be added to my code and everything. So seeing those two different experiences really helped pretty much figure out what I wanted to do in the end, which is why I chose, the FBI and everything. But it's really, both of them helped me pretty much figure out exactly what I wanted to do. They both helped me pretty much learn about teamwork. Like I said, like in the FBI, I pretty much made a database. And so that was working a lot one-on-one with someone else, pretty much figuring out how that database was supposed to look, talking with, my managers, figuring out what resources we needed to actually make it work. think through exactly what needed to be done and, you know, what authorization we needed, what access we needed. So both of them really helped me pretty much figure out exactly what I wanted to do, which helps a lot. But they were both very different. So I always like, you know, if you don't have one if like you have one internship and that lasts the whole time and you love it, like go for it. I didn't really end up liking my first internship, so I got a second. Um, but that turned out to be amazing because I'm doing exactly what I love now.
So yeah, really cool examples of very different types of experiences and how one was maybe kind of going towards your natural tendency. You said you kind of were a little more quiet, but maybe knew you wanted to get out and you realized you actually kind of want to be around people a little bit more. So that's a neat story. Okay, one last question for our panelists, and then we'll open it up to other questions that you all might have and try to address a couple of other topics related to internships. So last question, is there anything that you would do differently in how you went about searching or also on the internship side? Is there anything that you wish you had done while you were there? And I'll just leave that open, whoever wants to jump in.
I guess for me, so I did my internship my senior year of undergrad, and that was partly because I changed my major my junior year. And so trying to figure out my junior year, like, what is psychology? Because I was an elementary education major, and what do I want to do with this? 'Cause there's so many different avenues, and in the midst of changing your major, it's pretty hectic. And so it worked out perfectly fine for me and for other people to do it their senior year. But I know, like, I was applying to grad school my first semester of my senior year. I started this internship, so I was doing it at the same time. And I went ahead and applied, but for some people, they may not feel comfortable applying for something that they don't really know that they want to do. And also, it's your senior year. It's a lot going on. Graduation, last things to do in Boone or wherever you are. And so I felt like a lot of my like time, thought, and energy was put into this, and which wasn't a bad thing. But I sometimes wish that if I could have gone back and turned back the clock, I would have been able to do it my junior year. So then I had that, and then I could go into my senior year having a better idea of what was going on. And on the internship site, honestly, I probably wouldn't change anything. I had a lot of great and diverse experiences from working with students, but also different events that the my site hosted. And so seeing a wide variety, I guess the only thing I would change is I would have dipped more into the career development side of things. And I know at one point I was going to try and start working more with like resumes and different sites like that, so I could have a different lens going into graduate school. But COVID happened and you really can't do much about that. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else want to answer that question? What would you do? What would you have done differently on your site?
Yeah, so especially with me, federal internships, I'll say, get hectic. So, you know, I applied to every single internship that I could possibly apply for. Um, but especially when it came to the FBI one, it took a year and a half for me to get accepted, just because it took so long for them to get all the paperwork and figure it out. And then COVID happened. So I would probably start earlier. The earlier, the better, in my opinion, just to make sure you get everything done and ready. And then that way, if there are any changes or they need anything, you're already ready, and can make those changes. As for in the internship itself, I don't really have anything that I would do differently. I loved my internships. They both taught me things that I needed to know. So.
Great. So I'm hearing from both of you a little bit about timing and when to apply and that process and being mindful of that. And so you do want to of course, you have to follow your department guidelines if you're doing it for academic credit. So there are some rules about that, about when you can receive academic credit, how many, like what year you have to be in, those kinds of things. But also thinking about just your own workload and when it is going to work best for you. It may be that a summer internship is a better option in terms of kind of workload that you may have going on versus during the semester, as Sarah mentioned, during your senior year. Okay, and Caitlin, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I definitely agree with what piggybacking on you and Justin, definitely time for me started, the sooner the better for sure, because I had so much paperwork and stuff I had to do. I had to like write a letter to, I think, like the head of admissions of the College of Ed. It takes a long time to get it done, but definitely timing. But my key takeaway, my first one, my key takeaway or wish, kind of more like, I feel like I wish I had more of the feedback more from my advisors. They didn't really come out to my site much. And I verbalized that to them, that I wish they were there more to, see the things that were going on and to give me the feedback. The second one, I think they came out more the second time around. So I felt like that was a little bit more of a better experience, and that I was being provided the feedback and stuff from them. So that kind of got more from that second one than I did from my first one. But really, honestly, thinking about it, if I would change anything, I mean, at one hand, I'm like, there's so much I would love to change, but then on the other hand, I'm like, where would I be at if it wasn't the way it happened? So I'm kind of just gonna go with the optimism in me and say everything happens for a reason. And if that didn't happen, bad experience from my first one to a decent experience from my second one, I'm like, I take so much out of it, and I feel like I grew as a person, and it made me who I am now. And it sounds silly, but that's just kind of like how I'm going to take it away. I'm going to take it away with optimism. If it wasn't for that, where would I be? So that's all I got to say.
Great. That's a great way to look at it. Yes, sometimes you can learn just as much from something that didn't go the way that you wanted it to as you can from the one that went just, great. Okay, so let's take some time to see if any of our guests have questions. What questions do you all have for our panelist?
Yeah, so going off this.
Yes, go ahead.
Going off the skills listed, is there any additional ones that I should take note of or keep in mind?
Other than the skills on this particular page?
Yes.
Well, these are the ones that our employers tell us are most important in their recent grads. So these would be the ones that I would definitely focus on and be thinking about. In addition to this, I think just with everything going on in the past year, something employers may be asking is just maybe asking about your experience with that and adaptability potentially, and how you handled some of the changes in your life and your schedule and things like that. I would anticipate that might be something that our employers may be asking about. Les, do you have anything that you would add to that?
Well, and hitting upon that is true, Michelle. A lot of them, and when we're talking to employers, when I'm talking to them as we're going through the process, a lot of times they'll reach out to me when they're wanting to get into Handshake and getting opportunities for students. And the conversation has been with some of the employers I've talked to this past semester is how are the students doing? How have they been able to cope? And I want to know, what were their reactions? We know how we as an organization had to handle this pandemic, but how will the students cope with it? Because a lot of them are wanting to know if you're that adaptability, that flexibility, how you were able to transition from one situation that you knew to a totally surprising situation that's where organizations saying we want someone who can take this, basically handle things under pressure and being able to adapt to it. So that is one thing that Thomas, you want to really highlight when you're talking to employers of the situation. And it's nothing, there's nothing wrong when you're talking to them to say, you're talking about your key points and what are your skills, and saying, taken in case of the COVID situation, this is where I found myself. And then this is what I did to rise above and adapt to the situation for me to be able to move forward.
Thanks, Les. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions do you all have?
Just like the types of questions to ask employers and stuff like that.
Okay, so the types of questions to ask employers during a fair or
During an internship, like for applying.
Okay, so maybe during an internship fair when you're interacting with employers. Okay, Les, you want to take that one too?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So as you're, if we start in the beginning when you're going to the fair, and we've got the one that's coming up this Wednesday from 12 o'clock until 3. So in preparation for you getting on to Zoom and being able to talk to the employers, I would recommend looking to see who the employers are, do some background research of them, find out the organization, seeing if that's something that that's a fit for you. Do their ideals, do their mission statements, do their values coincide and sync with how you feel and where your values are? So within that investigation, you'll be able then to develop questions to say, well, this is what I noticed with your organization, your mission. I feel this is very strong for me too. So how do you, how are you able to work with an individual with various backgrounds? Where am I? What are you going to do? What are some of the skills that you want? You've seen the list as far as in the skills that you have, but what are some skills that this internship you feel I will be able to come out with? You can tell them what you have, but also saying, well, reading and knowing about your organization, would I have the opportunity to learn these skills? So there's some questions that some background work and investigation you'll have to do on your own. But these are some good things that you can look at to see. Others is just most of the organizations will talk about what their mission and what their goals are, but you can ask as far as what's the possibility of these internships and where do they go? You know, a couple of our panelists have talked in regards to the great flexibility with the internship, that it opens up a new avenue for them to become employed afterwards. There's nothing wrong when saying, you know, is there possibility from having this internship that may lead to employment? When I had my internships, I did quite a few internships when I was in school. One was for academic credit, the others weren't, but they did lead to employment opportunities for me afterwards. So that's something that you can ask as well.
Thanks, Les.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will touch on remote internships just a bit, because that is a question that we're getting asked by students. And the thing I would say about that, if you have concerns about, or if you'd like to be remote, even for the summer, just with the continued uncertainty, you can search for remote internships on Handshake. I mean, one way to do it is put the keyword remote in there, and that should bring it up for you. And they will indicate, usually in the description, if it is remote or not. The other piece would be to ask if you are at the Internship Expo, or if you see an internship that's really appealing, you can always ask. Now, if it's a camp internship or something where you kind of have to be with people, then you probably don't want to ask in that situation. But there are some more like administrative, sales, research, or those kind of positions that might allow for remote work. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay. What other questions do you all have?
Hey, so this is my first year at App State, so I'm still early, I guess. Kind of still figuring out what I want to do. But I know we already touched on it too, but do y'all have any, I guess, tips in what to look for in an internship rather, or like other than just like pay or anything like that, I guess?
Yeah, sure. I can touch on that. And since you did say you are still figuring out what you want to do, um, one thing that I mean, if you have you thought about just what your interests are, and it can start with just one thing that you know that you're interested in, or a skill set that you feel like you have. And if you are planning on going to the Internship Expo on Wednesday, look at that list of folks that will be there and read about them. I think just, doing some research and some homework about what the organizations are about and what they're looking for. I mean, there are hosts that are open to students that are still exploring. There are certainly going to be some hosts that really need you to be in your major and well into it and have a certain skill set to be able to do well in the internship. But there are some that feel a little more exploratory, so that might be something that you look into that might help you explore your interests. So let's say, for example, that that your one thing is that you like writing, and or you're creative. Maybe it starts with that, and then you kind of expand from there. And also know that through career development, you can take self-assessment inventories. That's the area that I work in with career exploration, and those type of appointments can be scheduled on Handshake. That could be a good place to start too, to help you explore what could be a good fit.
And Allison, the nice thing is with what Michelle's mentioning with some of the assessments, there's nothing wrong with you being, a freshman, first year, or just a transfer coming in and looking at an opportunity just to be able to do the internship. That's not even for academic credit. It's just for you to kind of find out. And our panelists has mentioned this, to go into it and saying, I'm kind of interested in this. This sounds really neat for me to do this internship. So exploratory opportunity for you. And and we've seen with many students, then you think where you're wanting to go, but you have an interest. So you do an internship. It could be paid, not paid, but it might not be for academic credit. And then you say, yes, this is definitely what I want. So that helps narrow your direction. Or it could very well be that you've realized this is not the direction I want to go. And you've got an opportunity then to maybe look at some more assessments, talking to Michelle and her group, or talking to faculty advisors and saying, I'm more interested in this. So there's an opportunity for you to, don't wait until it's your junior year or your senior year. You can do an internship just for the experience.
And you'll notice this page that I have up gives a list of different types of internships, and you'll notice that that I do have the unpaid ones listed here. Of course, that's not ideal, but I have worked with students that would do their unpaid internship while working part-time. It kind of just depends on how many hours you can fit in and whether you're a full-time student. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all when it comes to doing your internship. People do it in very different ways. I think Les would probably agree with that. So this just gives you some ideas of what those different options might look like. Okay. What other questions do you all have?
So of course, like with COVID, there's more internships that have the opportunity to be like remote, I guess. But do y'all have anything or that's like positive or negatives to remote internships regarding like, I guess, experience? Obviously, you don't get that same thing.
Yeah, I can give what I think might be positives and negatives, but I think that's probably something that will be ongoing and that we'll continue to learn about in the future after we've had time to go look back and reflect. But just in the moment, I would think it would be that being a part, feeling like you're in person and part of a team, learning those kinds of social interaction skills. Although I think, we're doing the best that we can with Zoom and like these virtual platforms that different companies might have. But yeah, I think especially if you're someone that craves that part might be difficult. I think the positives of it are certainly that you could be doing a remote internship, across the country, which that's pretty cool, or maybe even an international internship and be remote, and still, have that as a great resume builder. And it may not be somewhere that you could physically be, or could have physically been even before COVID, because it can be expensive to be able to live somewhere different while you intern. So this remote opportunity certainly provides that opportunity, provides the ability to be somewhere different, or not physically, but remotely. Does that help?
Yes, that was perfect.
Okay. What other questions? Anybody else?
That was all I had.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's go through just a couple of more things. And so this site is some of the things we've already been talking about, but just so you know, there is an internship website that gives you step-by-step information about how to apply for an internship, and that's listed here. And of course, some other steps such as preparing your resume, cover letter, and being ready for interviews. The Career Development Center can help you with all of those things. You can schedule appointments with your career coaches, and that's going to be via Handshake. Ta-da, there's Handshake. appstate.joinhandshake.com. And this is, if you haven't gotten familiar with that, this is our platform, our career management platform, where you can schedule appointments, you can search our upcoming events, you can search for jobs and for internships, search and apply for jobs and internships on here. All right, and hopefully you all know that our Internship Expo is coming up on Wednesday, 12 to 3. And I think, like Les and I said, we would encourage you to explore to see who is coming, and register for that, and plan on meeting with some of the different representatives that are there. And finally, just so you know, we have a lot of events going on throughout the semester. And this is the link to get you to all of our events that are happening. These are all virtual, of course. And we are doing weekly types of events by industry cluster. So we have weekly events for arts and media, nonprofit government, healthcare, and so on. So I encourage you to get familiar with that, so that you can get plugged into all of the great events that we have going on. We do the Internship Expo Wednesday, but that doesn't mean that these other events would not give you the opportunity to connect with employers that might hire interns as well. So this week isn't it. These other events that we have going on can be an opportunity to network with employers and gain insight into internship opportunities. Okay, and that is the end of our presentation on Internship AMA. I do want to give just a warm thank you to our panelists for being here. It's on an evening, so thank you so much for your time and insight. It was really helpful, I think, for all of us. So thanks for being here, and we look forward to potentially seeing you at the Internship Expo on Wednesday.